Hey, quick favor, we need your input. For a few weeks this August, we are going to be giving ourselves our usual late summer break, and as usual, we'll be running some favorites from the archives. But this year, we are asking for your help in deciding what to run. In our newsletter, we're going to be doing a series of votes on what episode we should feature each day. So it's up to you to chime in, and that will help us decide. All you have to do is subscribe to the This Day newsletter at thisdaypod.com. We'll be sending out our first poll soon, so jump on it. This episode is brought to you by NPR's Life Kit podcast. Let me tell you a true story. I was just outside in my backyard doing a little gardening and, as always, absolutely getting demolished by mosquitoes. Then I came in to record this very message right here about NPR's Life Kit, a show that gives you useful guidance to live your life a little better. And guess what their most recent episode is about? How to actually make yourself less attractive to mosquitoes. See, that is exactly the kind of advice you get from Life Kit, from fitness routines to mental resilience to navigating personal goals. Life Kit offers real stories, relevant insights, and clear takeaways. Finances, parenting, household chores. It's not just self-improvement. It is about living a better life starting right now. And yes, there's advice about mosquitoes. Look, I'm not going to spoil that episode for you. You should go listen to it. But that citronella candle, it's probably not doing anything. Anyway, go check out their list of episodes. I'm sure you will find something with some advice that you are looking for. Listen now to the Life Kit podcast from NPR. I want to take a moment to tell you about the Electronic Frontier Foundation and their podcast, How to Fix the Internet. For 35 years, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has been fighting to make sure that when you go online, your rights go with you. EFF has rescued podcasts from patent trolls, helped encrypt the web to protect your privacy, and prevailed in lawsuits against government secrecy and surveillance. I am a huge fan of their work, and can I let you in on a little something? The laptop that I'm recording this promo on right now has an EFF sticker on it covering the camera. I'm looking at it right now, and I would say at least once a week when I'm working at a coffee shop or something, someone will notice it and say, "Oh, wow, I really love EFF." I have long admired and supported their work to protect our rights online, and I am really excited to tell you about how to fix the internet. If you care about digital rights, privacy, or even just have questions and concerns about how to make technology work for us rather than the other way around, How to Fix the Internet and EFF are here to help. Season 6 is out right now. You can visit EFF.org/podcast to listen. That's EFF.org/podcast for How to Fix the Internet and to join EFF. Hello and welcome to This Day, a history show from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. Now, this is part 2 of our look at the long history and very weird present of the historical marker. So last episode, if you didn't hear it, maybe go back and take a listen, but we talked about how the world of historical markers really took off in the early part of the 20th century and how there are now official commissions and so forth that lead to those signs that you see when you're driving along the road, often that cast iron, same printing on both sides. George Washington slept here, or there was a mill here, or, whatever other kind of interesting information you will find on one of those signs. And now we are just going to talk about some of our favorite signs and examples that we have found in our research. Here, as always, Nicole Hemmer of Vanderbilt and Kelly Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hey there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
So I have broken this up into 3 basic categories, but, we can go through it and then talk about other stuff. But I think there are controversial signs and signs that have actually been taken down or reworked because of their controversy. I think there's a whole world of private signs and basically rogue signs and people going rogue with history. And then there are just the weird, funny, and just totally baffling examples out there, which include the ghost stories as well. Before we get going...
We're really overselling the ghost
Well,
thing.
the ghost one's good. But there's also ones about dead animals for some reason. There's a lot of dead animal signs out there. Before we get going, I will say I really want to hear from listeners about your favorite historical signs, especially the sort of stranger ones that you've encountered. So we have started a chat thread on our Substack, on our newsletter. So if you subscribe to the Substack, which you can do at thisdaypod.com, you'll see in the chat feature a thread there where we're asking people to chime in with your favorite examples of historical of historical markers. And you can also email us, thisdaypod@gmail.com. But we'll collect those and then we'll put it back out in the newsletter. So go ahead and subscribe, thisdaypod.com. You'll find all the information there. But let's start with controversies and takedowns. And I'll start by throwing out one of more interesting ones, which was good old Jimmy Carter. A historical marker went up in Atlanta about Sherman's March, not that long ago, in 2017. And Jimmy Carter pretty quickly had a problem with it because he didn't feel like it encapsulated the violence and the destruction of Sherman's March enough. And so he got it taken down, reworked, and put back up. So there's a nice example of a sort of way in which a sign can try and cast history in one way or another, and then someone can chime in.
Yeah. I love Jimmy Carter, but but there's a couple things that I still am like, Jimmy, come on, Jimmy. Like, I think emphasizing the destruction of Sherman's March is also creating a narrative that serves the South as a victim, right? So you can be like, oh my gosh, poor South, you horrible South, look at what Sherman did to you. I mean, like, word choice is so specific and political. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, and there was fire set, like it's passive voice versus active voice, all of the different ways in which the language is constructed around these signs really does help shape how people think about it. And so by wanting to emphasize that it was more violent than it was is also pushing a particular kind of idea.
Also, if you need a sign that makes the South into the victim of the Civil War, guess what? There are plenty on hand all across the U.S. South that are all about the War of Southern Independence, the war between the states, how victimized the poor South was during the Civil War. So it's fine to have Sherman's March to the Sea and not make white Southerners its primary victim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other examples you want to list? No surprise, a lot of the quote-unquote controversial ones have to do with race or the Civil War and
the Lost Cause.
And the Lost Cause, yeah.
I mean, the Lost Cause is rampant. I mean, they probably have, I would say, been the most financially supported in being able to get a lot of these signs up. But also placement is really key too, because some of these signs are placed in states that are outside of the Confederacy, or in places where there would not have been anything in contention over this location. And it's about proliferating ideas more than it is about proliferating like actual historical moments.
Mm-hmm.
There's another recent one that I find really interesting, and it was a sign put up to honor Elizabeth Gurley Flynn. And Flynn was somebody who had been somebody who was an activist for women's right to vote. She helps found the American Civil Liberties Union. There are a lot of reasons as a strike organizer and a worker organizer that she should be on a sign, and they put her up on a sign, and then 2 weeks after the sign goes up, they take it back down because Republican lawmakers in the state were mad that she had communist ties.
So this was just 2 years ago in New Hampshire in 2023. If you don't know that Elizabeth Gurley Flynn is a communist, like, what are we doing here, folks? Like, she was,
Did you not read the Wikipedia page?
Yeah, she was the rebel girl. She was the sort of poster person for the IWW. Like, there were songs written about her. I mean, yeah. So, but yes, it goes up. People see the word communist, they lose their minds. But yeah, 2 weeks later, it gets taken down.
Also, I'm sorry, it's 2023. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
If there was a communist.
Who cares?
Well,
and how many signs are dedicated to women anyways? I mean, that's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But the one I think takes it for me even more, though, is the Emmett Till sign.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that it has needed security, the fact that it has to be put behind bulletproof glass because it has been destroyed so many times. The violence that signage has is also something that just sticks with me. I cannot believe that someone would try to destroy something like that. And yet I can absolutely believe that someone would try to destroy a sign like that. But, erasure is part of the process of this too. Like, what we don't commemorate, what we don't acknowledge is also a part of the stories that we don't want to tell.
Yeah.
I went down to Money, Mississippi last fall, and drove to see this particular sign that is behind like a very inches thick layer of protective material. And like Money, Mississippi is in the middle of nowhere. You have to go down dirt roads. Even the gas station where the signage is just you have to make it a destination in order to even see it. And that's one of the things that really gets me about the violence against the sign is like it's a destination for people to come to to commemorate this thing. It's not just like randomly put up where people are passing it all the time. Like which is to say that people had to go there specifically to tear up the sign, and that just gives it another layer of volition that emphasizes the evil behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most powerful thing about the sign now probably is not just the Emmett Till story, but the fact that it is behind bulletproof glass, right? I mean, that is the power of the historical marker at this point.
Yeah, that's so true.
One last example of a controversial one, which also then I think segues us into talking about some of the kind of private signs and the way people go rogue a little bit with this whole world. But do you know about this Hayward Shepherd Monument in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia?
I do. I wrote about that in college.
Yeah, and so I think we talked about it on the show a little bit, and then actually a listener, I'm just remembering a couple of weeks ago, sent me a note saying, "Look, have you seen this? This is wild." Kelly, do you want to give the gist? Or
Hayward Shepherd. There was a sign put up in his honor that the Daughters of the Confederacy created to honor the legacy of faithful and loyal slaves. And so this was their way of saying, like, during John Brown's raid at Harper's Ferry, there was this man who tried to sabotage Brown's efforts and protect his master and family and all of that. And so
a black man was the first person killed in John Brown's anti-slavery raid.
Yes. And killed in an attempt to try to not run away, but killed in an attempt to save and protect his enslavers. Yeah. And it just, again, spits in the face of all history and Black resistance. And the NAACP protested it almost immediately. I mean, they were also trying to acknowledge and get a historical marker for John Brown's raid. Right. And this marker ran counter to everything that they were trying to accomplish.
Communication is critical to your success in your personal and professional life. I'm Matt Abrahams, and I teach strategic communication at Stanford Graduate School of Business, and I host Think Fast, Talk Smart, the podcast. I sit down with experts to discuss actionable advice that you can immediately apply to your life. We cover topics like managing communication anxiety, speaking better in the moment, maximizing your influence, and how to negotiate to get what you want and need. Listen wherever you get your podcasts to level up your communication.
I want to take a moment to tell you about Quince, your solution to stylish summer clothes. Now, I am recording this very spot on what I would say is the first true summer day here where I live. It is hot. It is sunny. I'm not going to lie. It's a little sticky even down here in my office. It is all those things, but it can still also be stylish. To me, peak summer is the time to go back to those reliable, high-quality staples in your wardrobe. Obviously, there's linen. And lucky for you, Quince has a ton of great linen clothing, from button-downs to pants to shorts. I have fully flipped the switch to linen, sometimes all linen. I am wearing my 100% European linen drawstring beach pants right now. They go great with sandals, but I can also dress them up a little bit if I want to throw on a button-down or even a light jacket. By the way, those linen pants, they're under $50. How does Quince do this? Well, it's by working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman. Quince gives you luxury without the markup. Give your summer closet an upgrade with Quince. Go to quince.com/thisday for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/thisday to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/thisday. Stay cool out there, folks. In 1918, Storer College, which is an all-black college in Harper's Ferry, put up a plaque honoring John Brown, and then the Daughters of the Confederacy put up this plaque as a sort of counter plaque, and then there's just been this effort to take it down and put it back up to contest. And then, as we were talking about in the last episode, you kind of you get these rogue forces, but then you also have these like official commissions. And so then the Harper's Ferry National Parks people had to step in, and now they kind of like haven't taken either one down, but they've added other plaques to contextualize the controversy about the other plaques. And it's just this whole thing, and it is a fascinating
plaques on plaques.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there were times when it had to be covered to protect it from vandalism as well. But, I think at the moment, I think it is there with what is called an interpretive sign put up by the National Park Service next to it, kind of describing the history. So a little meta, but, that is the kind of thing that we're discussing here. The story of the signs themselves tell a story. But it is also an example of people kind of going a little rogue. And there's a whole world of like private markers and people just putting up stuff and sometimes putting up signs that kind of look like those official historical markers, right? And trying to like maybe pull one over on you. But it is a really interesting theme throughout this whole thing.
This is kind of what I love about these signs is that we are trained to know the rubric of the sign, right? So if we see certain things, a certain type of print or a certain type of material or a plaque officially installed somewhere, we think, oh, well, this must be real. And so when you go to Pat's King of Steaks in Philly and you see the marker saying that they invented the beefsteak sandwich, you assume that is, well, it must be historically true. Somebody etched it on a plaque.
Paid money.
Shout out to Pat's. I think still the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia, but nevertheless, I mean...
But is it historically accurate?
Right, and I mean, can you think of a more controversial thing than to put up your own rogue plaque claiming you invented the cheesesteak in Philly? I mean, come on.
And no one can make you take it down.
And I guess not.
There's not like a regulatory body that's like, that's false advertising.
Right.
Yeah. It's good for business.
But honestly, like the best rogue plaque, or at least the one that is... the biggest sign of our times, to put it in a way, is the one at Trump National Golf Club in Virginia. So we talked about in the last episode how there's sort of this like erasure of the landscape that happens with development, and then there are these plaques put in to sort of mark what was happened there historically. And at the Trump golf course, there was one of these plaques that said in... perhaps not the most official of language, many great American soldiers, both of the North and South, died at this spot. The casualties were so great that the water would turn red and thus became known as the River of Blood.
This is on Trump's golf course in Virginia, right?
Yes.
Is any of that accurate?
Let's see. There were many soldiers that came from the North and South. And that's probably the end of it. That was not a spot where they died. And the water did not turn red, and it was not known as the River of Blood.
The River of Blood is not a historically accurate.
It's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
That is correct.
I mean, it's very Trumpian, obviously, but like also, gosh, what does that say? That you want, that if you're going to choose to invent some history on your golf course, that's what you choose.
Yeah, you're going to invent both the gore, but also you're going to make sure to say that the soldiers on both sides were great.
Yeah.
Which also prefigures some other Trumpian statements.
Yeah. But it's also a way to try to make anything that Trump is associated with as hallowed ground.
Correct.
And it just so is, absurd. And it's a way to sort of also promote this idea that he is protecting these spaces by putting his, golf course or whatever. It's just too much.
There's also nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on private land.
Can't even put up a countersign.
Right.
Can we do a countersign?
So, I mean, a lot of people just private enterprises put up signs. So, there's at any given moment, could be dozens of people just deciding to put up signs and sort of declare a historical moment. And sometimes it's, well-intentioned and accurate, like Pat's has a right to claim that it invented the cheesesteak. Other times it's completely made up. There is a foundation, the William G. Pomeroy Foundation, that is one of the few private philanthropic organizations that funds historical markers. And so they do also fund the statewide programs, but then you can also just like get a grant to put up some historical markers through this private enterprise. And so that's where I think a lot of this tricky stuff and these blurred lines come in. And no surprise, it's a very American story, but a lot of this also comes down to just like property rights and land use. And so, someone can put up a sign and then it's really hard to figure out like, how do we contest this? How do we take it down? What is the jurisdiction here? So, imagine like you have a truck stop and you put up a sign there with some BS information on it or whatever, well, that truck stop is on land that might be leased by a private entity from the state, and it might belong to the Department of Parks, and it's just like, who's in charge here? Who's going to actually kind of enforce this? And so a lot of these signs just kind of end up staying up.
And even official signs, right? They can be very difficult to take down because of the politics around them. And you need to have a kind of big national crisis in order for those reexaminations to take place, which is what happens in 2015 after the shooting in Charleston, and then in 2017 after Charlottesville. There is this real effort to kind of take a look around and say, what are our signs saying?
Yeah.
And do they need to be changed? In that moment of kind of reflecting on what U.S. history is and what it means, what is this history that we've been sharing? And do we need to add more? Do we need to maybe take some of these down because they use racial slurs or because they're just not accurate? Like there is this real inward looking. And so there's been a lot of signage debate, but people have found it hard to make changes because, again, it's all very contested.
I mean, I have been baffled for the longest that NPR did a study and found that over 270 markers still call Native Americans either savages or hostile, use racial slurs in order to describe them. I mean, it just, for the longest time, there was debate over the Massachusetts, I think, seal that had like a Native American being like decapitated or scalped. And that was not, it wasn't until of recent that those sort of imagery and words were contested. But to have hundreds of signs that still have, this racist, antiquated language is just kind of unacceptable. I feel like all signs there needs to be an app, like with a little QR code where it just corrects.
Yeah.
You pull it up and it tells
is the solution.
Though we talked about,
I'm really into this app idea.
Well, in our America 250 episode, we talked about how the Trump administration is trying to do that crowdsourcing, like, does this sign offend you kind of work. So even that can be very, very contested. There's also just the logistics here. I mentioned the kind of who owns the property on which the sign stands is a big question, but also, it costs money to replace a sign or correct a sign. In Minnesota, and NPR, we should give a shout out, did a big project a couple years ago around historical markers, but they found 206 markers in Minnesota, some of which had problematic language. Some of them just had like grammatical errors, and
I love that.
Where are you going to get the money to replace a sign that has a spelling mistake? In part because, and this is crazy, but there's basically one foundry, a place called Sewa Studios, that produces 1,200 markers per year, and it has $2 million in sales, but they kind of have a monopoly on this, on those like cast wrought iron signs thing. And so some of it is just like a supply chain issue in terms of getting, correcting these or replacing these. So
if you're looking for a business idea out there, folks.
Maybe.
Yeah, I know. How much? I want to know how much is a sign. Like, could we just get a couple $1,000 together and just
we know this. It's about
$2,800.
$2,800.
Oh, $2,800. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we can do some fundraising.
That's a good use of our Substack subscriptions right there, I would say. Yeah.
Let's talk about ghosts.
Let's talk about weird stuff. Okay, go for it.
Cool. The long promised Greenbrier ghost sign. Now, I am one who does prefer historical accuracy in my signs, but if anyone dares try to touch this sign to take it down, I will have words with them. This is a sign that is around where Smoot, West Virginia is. Everybody knows where Smoot, West Virginia is, in Greenbrier County. And it is a sign to the Greenbrier ghost. And I'm just going to read it to you because I think it gets you into the moment. Interred in nearby cemetery is Zona Heister Shue. Her death in 1897 was presumed natural until her spirit appeared to her mother to describe how she was killed by her husband, Edward. Autopsy on the exhumed body verified the apparition's account. Edward, found guilty of murder, was sentenced to the state prison. Only known case in which testimony from ghost helped convict a murderer.
Oh my!
Only known one.
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah. This was before the movie Ghost, so
there you
there's
go.
another one out there. But yeah, convicted a murderer.
Insane.
It's awesome.
There are apparently more than a dozen markers around the country commemorating ghosts. In Montgomery County, New York, there's one that says Widow Susan Road. The legend of Susan de Graaf, widow of Harmonius, died in 1848. Passerby see her crying ghost searching for her husband's grave at this site. So there you go.
And because it's equal opportunity around different supernatural creatures, there is in Vermont a sign to the Manchester vampire. Thought to be a vampire, Rachel Burton was exhumed and burned around 1792 at Jacob Mead's Force. Her grave lies east of here. This is properly called from the Vermont Folklore Center.
Fair enough.
Not to be outdone, Mississippi marks a spot where two men were taken in an alien spacecraft and examined. And there's a historical marker for where the spacecraft took them away.
I think people know this is one of the kind of most famous supernatural stories, but there's that Betty and Barney Hill incident. I don't know if people know this story, but in like September of 1961, this couple, Betty and Barney Hill, are in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and they encounter a unidentified flying object, and then they lose, quote unquote, 2 hours of time. And that is sort of largely considered the first alien abduction in the United States. But there's a marker in Grafton County, New Hampshire, marking that moment as well.
And it's an official one.
Yeah.
Official sign.
Wow.
Yeah. In Orleans County, New York, there's a sign about Charles W. Howard, who established the first world famous Santa Claus school there. And then a lot of those...
That's a good sign. I don't have a problem with that sign.
Exactly. Yeah, why not? And then there's just sort of like we've hinted at some of them, but there's people are proud of small things. So there's a sign in Ohio, in Hamilton County, Ohio, marking the place where the first ever glass door oven was created, and so there's a whole marker there talking about how oven technology was advanced in this place. Any others that jump out to you?
Dead animals.
Yeah,
lots of dead animals.
Yeah.
Florida has a historical marker for a dead alligator named Old Joe. But California also has a marker for a dead horse named Old Joe.
Lots of old Joes out there.
Don't name your animal Old Joe, or it will die. But
right, all the other ones will live forever.
But it will also go down in history on a plaque, so there's that.
Arizona has a marker for a donkey that drank beer.
Sure.
It doesn't say whether it's the cause of death, but it probably wasn't great for the donkey.
Yeah.
Why? Like, why?
No. But I mean, these are
so random.
They kind of are in line with like roadside attractions. Like this is like the giant rocking chair kind of phenomenon.
Yeah.
But
so
also, if you're a small
love
town in Arizona and a donkey drinks a beer, I mean, come on. That's the news of the
no-brainer.
Century right there.
You got to get a selfie.
Yeah.
worth your $2,800.
So as we wrap up here, I do want to point out, like, obviously there is a lot of competing history, right, in this. And so there's like multiple signs that claim to be the site of something. And I mean, this isn't just related to signs. I mean, the other day, I think maybe I mentioned this on the show, but my daughter and I have started to really get into license plates. And the other day she wandered up to me and she was like, why is it that both Ohio and North Carolina kind of seem to want to claim that they're the birthplace of aviation or first in flight or whatever? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I was driving through West Virginia, like, I don't know, a few years ago at this point, and I went through this beautiful road, and I went through this tunnel, and I emerged on the other side of the tunnel, and there's a sign there, and it says, this is the site of John Henry's race against the steam engine. And
really?
Yeah.
I showed that film in my class.
Yeah, and he bore through this mountain. He built this tunnel. He beat the steam engine. This is where the legend was born. There's songs, there's stories. Da, 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 da.
Yes.
And I got back to to DC where I was living at the time, and I was chatting with someone about it, and I was like, yeah, I like stumbled across the site of the John Henry myth. Like, this is amazing. And my friend, who happened to kind of just know this, was like, there's like a sign about that in basically every state. Like, every state has a tunnel. There's like one in Alabama, there's one in Ohio, but like basically every tunnel that you stumble across, there's a chance that someone's gonna be like, oh yeah, this is the tunnel that John Henry did in that one story.
Totally burst my bubble. Like, I teach a slavery and film class, and I show that like Disney short that they made of John Henry, and like
claim that it's West Virginia.
West Virginia feels believable.
Yes.
Yeah,
it does.
No,
Don't worry, Jody. Yours was the real one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, I think the legend is as true as a legend can be, but it is this interesting thing that everyone sort of seems to claim it. So, I'd be curious if people have instances out there as well of those sort of competing claims about supposed to be
Lincoln
about
was born in
first.
like 13 different towns.
Yeah. And George Washington slept everywhere. All right. Well, we are going to leave it there. This was really fun. And again, listeners, join in on the newsletter where we'll be following up on some of this and gathering some of your stories. thisdaypod.com to subscribe. But Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you as always.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kelly Carter Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
Radiotopia.